I welcome you to this time set apart to celebrate and remember the life of Pam Palmer. Now, it's not unusual for me as a minister to get to know people after they've died through the stories their families and friends share. Sometimes the full extent of a person's life and legacy only truly comes to light after they're gone. People who have known and loved Pam, people who've been mentored and changed by her presence among us, finally have an opportunity to voice their gratitude, even as they express their grief. Even the people closest to Pam may hear new stories today, because it's clear that Pam's legacy is broad and deep and multifaceted. As we enter this time of remembering, may we be grateful for all Pam gave during her lifetime to her family and friends and to this community. Thank you all for being here. Your presence is a testimony to her life, her love, her lasting legacy. And now I'd invite Kenton forward to share some remarks.
Good afternoon. It's wonderful to see so many familiar faces here today. Pam touched many lives during her 36 years in Moscow, and everyone here today has been in some way informed, inspired, or connected by Pam's life and work. Because each of us has our own memory of Pam, let's take just a moment to center ourselves and to silently reflect on what she meant to us. It's fitting that we are in East City Park, where in 2003, Pam reigned as Queen of the Renaissance Fair, our annual celebration of spring. That honor recognized Pam and Tom for their work to protect and promote our community. This park, actually right over there on the First Street side, is where Pam could be found annually in the Coalition for Central America's green tent, El Cafe Verde, making black bean burritos. That annual extravaganza raised money for humanitarian aid, a commitment reflected in her own trip to Nicaragua as part of a Witness for Peace delegation. And it was at a picnic table over here that Pam, Susan, Bill London, and a few other folks met in 1992 to brainstorm about Moscow's future. Those conversations led to the creation of Moscow Vision 2020, back when it was a real group and not just an email listserv, and a year later to Pam's decision to run for mayor. Pam was born May 20th, 1953 in Iowa City, Iowa, to Evelyn and Neil Palmer. We are honored that Pam's mother, Evelyn, is here with us today in the front row. The family lived in Vermillion, South Dakota, where Pam attended elementary and junior high school, and Toledo, Ohio, where Pam graduated from DeVilbiss High School. Pam attended Oberlin College, then the University of Toledo, where she earned a degree in geology, geography, and anthropology. It was geology that brought Pam west, first to Olympia, Washington, and then to Moscow as a geologist for the Idaho Bureau of Mines and Geology. For many of us here, our friendship with Pam began in the early 1980s. Time doesn't permit a full recitation of all of Pam's contributions to this community, but I'd like to mention just three. Moscow voters elected Pam to the city council in 1991 and re-elected her in 1995. In her second term, she was among the city council members, including Linda Paul, who is also here today, who advocated the city's purchase of the former high school on 3rd Street, which we now know and love as the 1912 Center. As we continue the celebration of Pam's life down the street later this afternoon, take a minute to reflect on how that place has enhanced our sense of community.
Let's done both, I think.
In the early 1990s, a University of Idaho president, who shall remain nameless, proposed to zero fund the Idaho Repertory Theater as a budget-cutting measure. Pam stepped forward and led a fundraising campaign that prompted the president to reverse that decision. Pam later served on the theater's advisory board, which sustained IRT for another 2 decades before it finally went dark this summer. Earlier this week, when I reread the Tribune's account of the IRT's demise, written as an obituary, I realized that summer theater at the University of Idaho was born in 1953, the same year as Pam. That is an eerie coincidence. Pam cultivated her interest in theater the next few years, earning an MFA in theater arts from the UI. She wrote, directed, and acted in plays around Moscow and Pullman, including this stage. And with her friends Andriette Perron and the late John Dickinson, Pam founded the Sirius Idaho Theater, which staged plays at the Kenworthy Performing Arts Center and elsewhere. Pam was diagnosed with colon cancer in late 2013 and sought treatment first in Reno, where she lived with her daughter Tava and son-in-law Joe, then in Seattle, where she was cared for by her daughter Erin, husband Julio, and their extended family. Her daughter Bria was a comfort to her mother in both of those locations. Pam died just a week ago in Walla Walla, surrounded by her 3 daughters and her sister on a day she had chosen to commemorate her mother's 90th birthday. In closing, I'd like to read a paragraph from a letter that Pam wrote in 1995 to her supporters as she began a second campaign for City Council. In the 16 years that I have lived in Moscow, I have always appreciated our city for its many offerings. Our location in North Idaho, the many arts and cultural activities, the educational environment, Moscow's sense of community, and most of all, the character of its people. My activities as a private citizen, mother, and public official confirm my belief that the way to accomplish just about anything is to get people involved to make a difference. I invite you to join with me in creating the kind of community we want for ourselves and our families. Those were Pam's words. What better way to remember Pam Palmer than for each of us to work to better this place we call home with the commitment and passion that she demonstrated.
Thank you, Kenton. Unfortunately, former mayor of Moscow, Nancy Chaney, is unable to be with us today, but she sent these remarks. To Pam's family and friends, I am sorry that travel abroad prevents me from being with you in person. A gathering to celebrate Pam's life is sure to have lots of hugs and wonderful stories. Few people in my life have folded me in like Pam did. I've come to feel like part of her family, and she made me better. When we worked together, one or the other of us could be scattered or focused, silly or serious, vulnerable or rock solid. and together we'd find balance and achieve success. One time we'd labored long and hard over a grant proposal for the Latah Trail. We were down to the wire, but perfectionist that she was, Pam needed one more editorial review of it before we hit send. Unfortunately, a computer glitch kept preventing us from submitting it. Finally, with no more than 10 seconds to spare, the fruits of our labor launched into cyberspace, leaving us giddy over the thrill of having made it by the skin of our teeth. Truth be told, we experienced that sensation more than once. Pam was smart, sensitive, intuitive, inquisitive, creative, a planner, and sometimes a take-your-breath-away, fly-by-the-seat-of-the-pantser. She lived her life intensely, with passion, spirituality, and joy. Pam, being Pam, eased us into our grief by shaping our goodbyes as she approached the end of her life, helping us to form new memories and consolidate old ones. I hold close a memory of Pam interacting with her grandchildren over root beer floats on my backyard deck in Moscow. I admired her easy ability to fuse teaching, joyfulness, and sweet memory building into that summer adventure with them. She described the talented, capable, kind young woman her daughters have become. Pam lived a meaningful and a substantive life, filled with love. This community and all of us are her legacy, and I am grateful to be a part of it. With sympathy and love, Nancy Chaney.